April 22nd, 2007 was the day that Diamond and Pearl finally hit store shelves in the United States, and a young Brian was very, very excited. After talking about it with my friends for months, I finally held it in my hands. 14 years and a lot of Sinnoh confirmed memes later, we finally have the remakes of our beloved Diamond and Pearl in our hands. But do they live up to the hype? I honestly feel like this is a conversation that we should be having for all of the remakes, and I think that we have been having that. So let's continue a trend, but this will be the first time that I've ever done it, so first time for everything, I guess. For reference, I am playing Brilliant Diamond, the remake to the original Diamond. I have a tradition with my brother where we end up buying both copies of whatever the new Pokemon game is, and I get one copy, maybe Diamond, and he gets another copy, say Pearl, and if we need to trade Pokemon to each other to complete the Pokedex, that's what we end up doing. This was no exception. I ended up with Diamond, he ended up with Pearl, just like we did back in the day. I bring this up only for transparency. I can tell you right now from my experience with both of the games that there is really no difference between the experience you're going to get in Diamond versus the experience you're going to get in Pearl. It's only going to be certain Pokemon's availability. I know this. I've been in the Pokemon community for a majority of my 25 years, so I can tell you that this will mostly apply to Pearl as well. I should also start out by letting you know part of my biases towards Pokemon games. Like I said before, I was in elementary school when the original Diamond and Pearl released, and I feel like that flavored a lot of my experience. Between that and coming off of Ruby and Sapphire being the previous games in the generation before, I didn't ever get my hands on Emerald until post Diamond and Pearl, unfortunately. I'm making a big deal about this because Diamond and Pearl were never my favorite Pokemon games, and upon completing them, I'm pretty sure they were probably my least favorite of all of the ones that I have played up to that point. Now, don't get me wrong, now as an adult and having played through other games, I can now safely tell you that Sinnoh is not nearly as bad to me as some other games are. Looking at you, Sun and Moon. I just want you, my dear viewer, to understand that Sinnoh was never ever my top priority. Ruby and Sapphire were my favorite games at the time, and they probably still are up there. I'd really need to sit down and write down a list of what my favorite Pokemon games are, but I can tell you that the base Ruby and Sapphire are still above the base Diamond and Pearl, and that might color a lot of what I'm going to say. I'm just going to be honest with you. After they released Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby, I really couldn't have cared less if they decided to remake anything else. Regardless of that, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl did come out. So I'm sure as none of you were asking, what are my takes on the games? In the style of Jenny Nicholson, I have broken this down into an ordered list. This is going to make it a little bit easier on me and add some structure because I just am to the point where I really like to just get in front of the microphone and ramble, as you can probably tell by now. So let's start out with talking about probably the most important aspect of a Pokemon game. So right off the bat, we have to address that this is a Pokemon game. It's really not anything that's breaking the mold in terms of gameplay. It's still the basic turn-based combat, rock, paper, scissors, elemental stuff. You know it, you love it, it's still here. I think the biggest thing that they add to it is just, well, it's not even really adding anything. It's just, it feels like Diamond and Pearl, but now there's fairy types. So just imagine if you're playing Diamond and Pearl, but there's fairy types. That's pretty much the only difference to any of the battles. I'm pretty sure they even stuck exclusively to a lot of like the original battle teams. Biggest changes that I've been made aware of are the Elite Forms rematch teams, but when you're playing through the base game without going back and doing post-game stuff, it is exactly the exact same that you would have had in 2007, except there's fairy types. The two biggest changes are probably the super contests, which even as someone who really liked contests, I can't bear to touch them with a 10-foot pole because now it's just a rhythm game that I'm awful at and I don't understand in the slightest, and the quality of life changes. So since I absolutely refuse to touch contests, let's talk about those quality of life changes. So HMs and field obstacles still exist, just like they did back in the old Diamond and Pearl, but this time around, instead of having to force one of your Pokemon to learn it and carry around a Bidoof that you probably don't ever want to use, they're all relegated to the Poketch, which is really nice because now you can carry around an actual Pokemon instead of a Bidoof that you just throw at all of your problems. You can also teach your flying Pokemon another move instead of Fly, which I get that Fly is also probably pretty good for the in-game stuff, but if you didn't want to, you don't have to. I certainly didn't, and I especially didn't teach it to a Staravia because I know all of you basic people out there be using Staravia still. I get that it's a great Pokemon, but use something else, you cowards. Got off on a bit of a tangent there, sorry. The other quality of life improvement, and I say that with big air quotes, is the fact that the EXP share is always on and you basically automatically have it as soon as the game starts. Now I put air quotes around it because a lot of people just didn't like the fact that you couldn't turn it off, and I am kind of one of those people because I think that it should be optional, in my opinion, but hear me out. The original Diamond and Pearl were so slow, and I get that that's kind of part of the charm of them, is that they are way more of a cozy game than Hoenn was, but like, I, even as I think a 5th or 6th grader at the time when it came out, drug my feet to complete the original ones. And that even kind of happened here with the remakes. I didn't plan this review as some sort of like super, I have to have this out by this date kind of thing. I just kind of said, hey, I should put out some content at some point, and I just finished BDSP. But it took me, I think I played through half of it the week that it released, and then it went back on my shelf. And only recently did I pick it back up and say, I should finish this before Pokemon Legends Arceus comes out. And let me tell you, if I didn't have the experience share on, I definitely would not have even gotten to that point. I can completely understand why people like Diamond and Pearl, and if they're your favorite games, that's great. I really do appreciate how nice and cozy and homey everything feels. But traveling the Sinnoh region just always puts me to sleep. This wasn't helped by the fact that everything was just slower in the original Diamond and Pearl. Thankfully in the remake, everything's been sped up and it's actually not super slow. I don't want to make it sound like the original Diamond and Pearl were unplayable, because they certainly weren't. I did have a lot of good experiences with Diamond and Pearl. Just from my perspective, coming off of Hoenn, which felt a little bit more fast-paced, and maybe I'm wrong, it just felt like Hoenn was faster and Sinnoh was just taking its sweet time, which isn't a bad thing. It just wasn't my thing. And I certainly feel that the EXP share just makes this a lot easier. I don't have to spend nearly as much time grinding, and the challenge is like Maybe it's sanded down quite a bit, which is why I'd like it to be an option that you can turn on and turn off. But I will be honest, I am at least thankful that it's here and that I don't have to continually grind like I did back in the old Diamond and Pearl. Alright, let's move on to something that's never been Pokemon's strong suit, the plot. The base formula is there. You are a 10-something-year-old, and you are going out on your Pokemon journey. You get a starter Pokemon, you stop the evil team, blah blah blah. You become the champion. It's pretty bare bones and pretty basic. It's all the little fillings with the evil team and some of the characters you meet along the way that really spice up the plot. The evil team this time around is yet again the Team Galactic. They were the original bad guys in the original Diamond and Pearl, and so it makes sense to bring them back in this fateful recreation of Diamond and Pearl. They are headed up by the usual evil team admins. We have a return to form with Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars taking their helms as the admins this time around, just like they did in the original Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. But an evil team is only as good as its boss, and this time around we have Cyrus. It's funny that Cyrus was the villain to come after Maxie and Archie, because he's coming from the exact opposite side of the spectrum when it comes to their evil plans, whereas, Maxie and Archie wanted to create more space for Pokemon and people to live, whether that be through flooding the earth or creating more landmass, ironically destroying it. Cyrus just wants to destroy and recreate the universe. Not even necessarily destroy so much as just be able to have his own universe where he can be alone, more or less. Cyrus is a cold and calculating man. He's not much for feelings at all, and he doesn't even see Pokemon as tools to be used so much as he just wants to be able to use their power as his own. He doesn't care if that is harnessed through making friends with them or just using them as tools. I think this is kind of highlighted when he actually uses Crobat in his last battle, and you can only get a Crobat through, leveling up friendship, and so I don't want to say that he basically gaslit a Golbat into evolving, but it wouldn't be beyond Cyrus, because he only cares about power that will let him obtain what he wants. As much as I preferred Archie and Maxie being somewhat bombastic yet kind of down to earth with their goals, Cyrus is terrifying, and I can certainly see why some people consider him to be their favorite Pokemon villain. This all comes to a head in Pokemon Platinum, where we see him get sucked into the Distortion World, and then he just ends up accepting his fate there, having an entire plane of existence to himself. Unfortunately, this doesn't happen in Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, because Game Freak exclusively kept out all Platinum content. So, unfortunately, we just get the base happenings where he fails to control Dialga or Palkia, and the player steps in and stops the entire world from being destroyed. And then he kind of runs off and does whatever he does in the post-game. It's safe to say if you liked the original Diamond and Pearl or anything from Sinnoh, you'll probably like these games for their plot. Granted, the plot's always been the weakest part of Pokemon games, so I really can't blame you if it's not your favorite part. Let's get this part out of the way. The chibi graphics are not nearly as bad as what everyone said, and if you actively said that it makes the Pokemon game worse, then I don't know what to tell you. Stop being a child. There are accurate things to be mad about when it comes to the graphics. Pokemon using their old models. Game Freak basically using the same models over and over and over again. Like they did in Sword and Shield. Accurate things to critique. But the character overworld sprites being chibi is just trying to bring a sense of nostalgia to the forefront, and that's the entire goal. And if you just honestly think that it massacred the series somehow, I really don't know what to tell you. I do think that the graphics really helped bring to life some of the scenes, especially at the end, because we got actual cutscenes instead of just the pixel art, like we move the camera over, things happen. They weren't too terribly expressive, but it was a lot, I don't want to say a lot better, but it was nice to be able to visualize it in actual size, you know, like Dialga being the actual size that Dialga is, not being, you know, this pixelated object that just sits in the middle of a stage, you know? Speaking of size, I don't know who decided to have all of the walk animation Pokemon be super duper small, but I hate it. Like, I get that I wasn't expecting them to be, like, full size. I wasn't expecting Wailord to take up the entire screen, you know? But look at how they massacred, you know, Pokemon that should be bigger. I think Rayquaza is probably the worst because he's so tiny. He's just this tiny little green snake that's following you when he's master of the skies. It's not... I like that the future returned, but I wish that it would have been something more akin to our Gold, Soul, Silver, where we actually saw, like, size differences. Like, and I get that it would have been hard. It would have been hard to implement that. But if you would have just made, like, a slightly upscaled model for all the bigger Pokemon and the legendaries, like, or, like, not necessarily one model, because they wouldn't all be able to fit in one model, but, like, just a little bit of a size variation. I don't know. I think it probably could have used another month or two in the oven, honestly. And I know this isn't exactly a critique of art or graphics or anything, but another month or two delay probably would have been good for these games because they did end up being quite buggy at launch, apparently. Apparently there was very rampant cloning and things like that, which is fine. I don't really care that happens. I'm not Valercify. But I just remember seeing, and now I might be able to find the clip, I might not be. I just remember seeing someone step foot into Candace's gym, sliding all the way to her, and they're like, hey, Game Freak forgot that I can walk diagonal, and then immediately being able to go up and just nullifying her entire gym puzzle. And it's like, some of this wasn't completely thought out, and it needed a little bit more time, but it could be worse. Could be a lot worse. I decided to make music its own separate section from art and graphics, where I would normally consider it an art, just because Sinnoh's music was always the thing that really, like, did captivate me completely. I don't think that there's a single bad song in the entire Sinnoh region. I don't ever turn down my volume at all playing it. And with these new remaster tracks, that's the same. They are beautifully remastered. They bring these cozy, warm vibes when they need to. Things like the Snow Point City theme also, like, invoke that feeling of the cold. And I think that just all around, the soundtrack is probably the best part of these games, honestly, for me at least. Someone who's not a big fan of Gen 4. If you like Gen 4, you're probably going to really like these games. I'm not a composer, and I don't really know a lot about music. I'm more of a lyric analyst kind of guy when it comes to that kind of stuff. But I do think that the music is just really, really good, and I don't think you have to have a degree in music to be able to say that music is really, really good. That was kind of short, but I really don't have anything else to say about it, so I guess I should be getting into... BDSP are good games. Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, they are good Pokemon games. Diamond and Pearl were good Pokemon games. It follows the same trend. But there's a big asterisk on that, because I do believe that we could have gotten something a little bit more akin to Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, where we had some changed elements. I'm not expecting Dynamaxing in Sinnoh. That's fine. But even if you just wanted to keep the same Pokedex that you had in Sinnoh, excluding the Platinum content was an interesting choice, in my opinion. I don't think it was a good one, but I guess I can kind of understand where Game Freak was coming from with that. And I kind of want to throw out a conspiracy theory. So pause the video, go grab some tinfoil hats real quick, and come back. I personally think that Game Freak pushed so hard to have these games be exactly what they are. Exact one-to-one carbon copy remakes of Diamond and Pearl, as a statement of what way should we take the series. Because what is the other Sinnoh-based game coming out around the same time? If you guessed Pokemon Legends Arceus, you'd be correct, which is looking to take the series in a whole new direction. I honestly think that Game Freak is kind of using this as a baseline test to see, should we stick with the old formula, or should we try something new every once in a while, or should we even just do this new thing and stick to it? What's going to sell better? Because I do think that they kind of got burnt on X and Y a little bit, and it's kind of a documented fact that we didn't get an X and Y 2 because Black and White 2 didn't do too hot, and so we didn't really get any sort of follow-up for those generations. And then Sun and Moon, we got Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which were weird versions where it was kind of like a third version, but instead of focusing specifically on a new legendary, it did whatever it did. That's a completely different video. But my point is, I do think that this is some sort of marketing thing, and I do think that it depends on how well Pokemon Legends Arceus is going to sell. That will determine which way the games are going to go from now on. Capcom did something very similar with DMC, Devil May Cry, and Devil May Cry 4. Basically, they released them around the same time, and then whichever one got more sales was the one that basically got to continue on with Devil May Cry. I think it's the exact same thing here. But regardless of that, I do think that Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl are fantastic games. They need a little bit of polish, they needed a little bit more work, but you know what? It could be a lot worse. And you know what? A bit of nostalgia here and there, it's not a bad thing, you know? Should I ever want to return to the Sinnoh region, I will be using Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl instead of any copy of Diamond and Pearl that I have. Mostly because of these quality of life updates. I don't think I'd be able to make it through the Sinnoh region without them. Were I to give it some sort of numeral out of 10, I would probably give it about a 7.5. Needs some polish, relies a lot on nostalgia, but if you're a Pokemon fan that's never played Diamond and Pearl before, and you don't want to pay an insane price for a DS cartridge and a DS to play it on, you could do worse. The real hype around the new Pokemon game is all being saved for Legends Arceus, obviously, so hopefully I'll see you around and I'll be able to get some sort of review out for that at some point in time. That is, if the Pokemon Company ever mails my copy to me.